circus life were enough. So Dan cut loose and organized the Virginia Minstrels, one of the earliest blackface performance groups. They played for weeks at the Bowery Amphitheater in New York. Then they went on to Boston, and from that port sailed to England, playing to standing room only crowds. Only the big guarantees offered by Bryant's minstrels persuaded the Ohio native to quit the road and to go to work for someone else. Emmett was never sure where he got the idea for Dixie. Perhaps the talk of King Cotton may have had some influence, but he later recalled telling his wife that the bad weather had made him wish he was in Dixie. Questioned years later, he admitted that he wasn't exactly sure where he first heard of Dixie. According to him, he may have heard slaves singing about their happy life on Dixie's land without realizing that they were referring to the New York plantation of Dutch slave owner Johan Dix. On the other hand, Emmett once said, "Lots of our performers came from the South, especially New Orleans. Much of these fellows liked to carry around a lucky piece, one of those French language $10 bills marked with the big block letters DIX. I saw lots of these and always wished I had one myself." Regardless of where he picked up the word Dixie, the Buckeye composer later admitted, saying, "I wished I was in Dixie on the dreary day when it didn't seem a bit like spring, sort of lighted a candle in my mind. Suddenly I jumped up and sat down at the table to work. For the first time I had an idea for Monday night. In less than an hour I had the first verse and chorus. After that it was easy. When my wife got back home, I sang it to her and explained, 'It's all finished now, except the name. What should I Southerners had already snatched up the melody composed in New York City, adapted for use in the Confederacy March. Sheet music was on sale to the public when Jefferson Davis was inaugurated President of the Confederate States of America on February 1861. Having been played at the inaugurations of two heads of state within a 30-day period, Dixie became musical ammunition for abolitionists and slaveholders alike. Before the end of 1861, hosts of Northerners were using Dixie for the Union to urge the faint-hearted. On, ye patriots, to the battle. Hear Fort Moultrie's cannon rattle. Then away, away, then away to the fight. Another northern version began. Away down south in the land of traitors, rebel hearts and Union haters. Look away, look away, look away to the traitors' land. On the southern side, General Albert Pike, chiefly remembered for recruiting Cherokee Indians for Confederate military service, borrowed the same melody in order to sound his version of the alarm. Southrons, hear your country call you, up lest worse than death befall you, to arms, to arms, to arms in Dixie. Widely sung in much of the North until at least as late as the 1863 siege of Vicksburg, Mississippi, Dixie had by then already become the unofficial battle song of the Confederacy. All adapted and pirated versions lost their vitality long ago. Daniel Decatur Emmett's 1859 original is almost universally familiar to Americans after nearly 150 years. Strange